It is
Exactly.
inedible.
Well, if that were the case, then why is there like a fan club?
Away for long enough that people forget how terrible it is. And they're like, oh yeah, the McRib. I'll go have one. Then they have one. They're like, oh my God.
Pat nailed this. He nailed this on the head so well.
Mayo experience.
Mayo experience. Mayo experience. Mayo experience. Experience.
Welcome to the Pat Mayo Experience. Today, the NFL awards. We're going to go through who we think should win each of the NFL awards, which are happening this weekend, hosted by, I don't know, probably some terrible comedian. I actually have no idea. There's cool sponsors that are for each of the awards, though. We'll have to break those down in depth. The Cust Corner midway through the show. And if there's any, I mean, there's not really any value left in the betting market. People are clutching their D'Amico Ryans tickets, their Stefanski tickets. Everyone in the world has tickets that aren't DeMar Hamlin for comeback player of the year. We'll see what happens in that market, but we'll talk it all through. Jeff and Tim are on the line, but Rob Pizzola is joining us for this show because there is no best bet show this week. Cam joined me on the golf best bet show with DGen 75 to talk about the travesty that is the Pebble Beach tournament. I just wanted to throw out to you good people out there that Rob is the special guest on the show because we're celebrating today. I was nominated for the Fantasy Sports Writers Association Daily Fantasy Golf Writer of the Year, but the Pat Mayo Experience, which is a 4-time winner in the category, was nominated once again, Rob, for Best Overall Fantasy Podcast, Multiple Sports. So I only ever really celebrate with Jeff and Tim, but I wanted to bring you in on it too.
I really appreciate that. This is one of those awards that you actually get nominated for, though, and you don't get paid. You don't pay for the nomination, correct?
Correct, yes.
Because there's some of those fantasy awards are out there where, you know, you're like, how do I submit myself for an entry? And you're like, all you got to do is submit like a couple $100 and you're on the ballot. But it's good to know that this is not one of those, Pat.
Yeah, that was the FS, what I believe is the FSGA now, was the FSTA at the time. The first year it was a thing. I went and looked at it. I was like, I can win all of these if I just get DraftKings to pay for it. And they did. And I won a whole bunch. It was great.
Well, that's great. I mean, it ups the resume a little bit, gives you future value in the business. But yeah, I'm glad to be a part of this. I really enjoy doing this content every single week. It's a little bit different than my traditional content. And I enjoy that. I like to, you know, just sometimes bro out, as the kids would say nowadays. So appreciate you having me on, Pat.
Well, Jeff is on location in Palm Beach, hanging with his buddy Trump. Paul is behind the camera in the studio. I am sick, so I'm quarantining at home, so I don't get Paul sick. On the line, as he always is Tim Andercust.
Tim Andercust.
It's not my name.
You sound sad.
No, I'm not sad at all.
You're like, oh, it's not my name. You sound,
well, it's not.
You sound like Sonora Card Gauge.
Oh, thank you, Elizabeth.
Are you excited for the awards?
Do people know Sonora Card Gauge, Mort
No.
Gauge?
Do they know the 21st most relevant character from the Homestar Runner web series from the early 2000s that was on Flash, which means it no longer can be a website because Flash doesn't exist anymore? I don't think a lot of people know what that is, Tim.
That's too bad. Well,
I agree it's too bad. It was fantastic. Jeff, how you doing down in Florida?
I am doing lovely, and I gotta say, I went to an awards dinner once that I thought was real for a friend of mine being nominated in his industry, and I was there for like 12 minutes, and you realize, oh my God, his dad just bought 2 tables. Like, he's winning an award tonight.
Too bad you can't bet on that stuff.
Well, when we end up filming our show of what you would do, let's put that down in the comment section, by the way. If you were the czar of sports betting, what would you change first? Now, remember, what would you change first? What is the most egregious thing? So things, Rob, like refunding people's bets, well, like kind of annoying to see on Twitter, probably not the first thing you should do if you were the czar of gambling. Like, oh, I can change anything. I'm going to change that. Not giving people money back.
Yeah, I would get rid of the odds boosts, Pat. Like, there's some people are responding like, what is, like, of all the things you can change, you're going to take away stuff that's beneficial for the better? Like, I don't understand some of the responses. We'll get to that on that show, but definitely there's room for improvement. I wouldn't start with the things that are favoring the bettors right now. I would start the opposite way around.
Tim,
if I was the czar of blackjack, I would take away 3-2 on blackjack and make it even money.
Yeah. Well, Tim, it feels like, and I mean, Rob deals with more, I deal with a lot of people who love to bet on things, but it really seems like people who watch this show, outside of a few outliers, just kind of enjoy betting on things. If it wins, that's great. If they don't win, like, they're not like too pissed about it. But Rob, I see like some interactions that you have with people online. But Tim, it reminds me of like the crab bucket theory, where if I didn't win, you can't win either. And that seems to be the entire sports betting landscape.
Yes, I can imagine anybody who gives out picks, even if they're free, must just deal with a lot of toxicity in their mentions. It's not worth it. I got enough to deal with. I don't need that.
But Geoff, it's almost like you're not charging for picks. You can come on the show and like when you brought up Nick Dunlap in golf and he hit it 500 to 1. You didn't bet it. You were like the only person that brought it up. And we saw like 3 or 4 people. They were like, yeah, I put $5 at 500 to 1 on Nick Dunlap. They're like, thanks, Geoff, for bringing it up. People are like, Geoff didn't even bet it. Like, who cares? These guys won. That's good.
Yeah, listen, we were talk through in a lot of names. I'll defend, like, Rob gets into it, and I've said a couple times that maybe in an alternate universe he should have a rivals list on a future Custies award. But I will give him credit, because I'd say like 85% of his beefs are really towards responsible gambling and how people portray things, and how people who, like, I remember being 20. I worked with Rob when I was 20, like how easily influenced I was, and how big mistakes like that were made. And so I would say like most of Rob's fights are really just championing responsible gaming, but he still racks up the rivals. I won't deny it.
There's definitely room for entertaining sports betting content. Like I'd never suggest that. The difference between like Geoff and Tim and like what we produce, Pat, with Cam, is like none of us are coming out there and like claiming that we're Billy Walters, right? Like, Geoff gives out picks. He wouldn't even know if the last 10 picks in a row he gave out were winners, because he's not there to market himself and sell himself in some way. And that's where I find issues in the industry. It's when, people go a little bit overboard and they try to convince people that they're this, amazing bettor. I think that can do a lot of damage in the long run, but I definitely 100% think there's room for like entertaining content where people can just be people. You just don't have to sell yourself as something that you're not. And I think that's the difference between what we do here.
Well, we are now talking about an odds market, which is basically off the board for today. The NFL awards market, which is happening this weekend. That's how you know it's timely week off of football content. So we're going to start with the MVP. And my single favorite part about this year's awards is that every award has a sponsor. So if you out there own a brand, contact me. If you want your brand associated with one of the Custy awards, like you can be the Omaha Steaks most Andercursed thing of the year. We can put your name up against these Custy categories. You could be the Squarespace, the Hello Fresh, the Factor 50, code Mayo 50 at Factor, by the way, is going to work. The Factor 50, factormeals.com/Mayo 50, Fienberg's biggest rival of the year. I am completely open to doing that for the Custy Awards. But MVP is up first. Lamar's probably going to win the Invisalign MVP, by the way. Maybe they'll just give it to the guy with the worst teeth, Tim.
Did not expect that.
I don't
like these sponsors of professional sports awards. I have to say, I think it's gross. It's like the Verizon Stanley Cup. That would be awful too. Like there's room for advertisement in sports, and I'm not a purist by any means, but certain things probably should be off limits. And I think this is probably one of them.
I mean, I don't care. This is the easiest money grab in history.
But it's gross.
Why is it gross? What do you care?
Grubby,
it's a
and
fucking
I don't like
made up awards for a TV show.
Well, everything is made. Well, that means it's not made up for a TV show. I mean, this thing existed before television existed.
Sure,
so.
and now it is a giant TV property for the NFL. So now that they're on TV and millions and millions and millions of people are going to watch it, why wouldn't you sell built-in advertising to it? That only makes sense. It's like you hate money, you communist.
No, just like there's a time and a place for everything. That's all.
Will Tim boycott the Custies if you sell individual sponsorships for awards down the road?
No, because you know what? That's a completely jocular and fun thing that has zero prestige. So yeah, go ahead. Have that barbecue place that Geoff was banned from sponsor the Fienberg's biggest rival group. I don't care. But maybe we don't need to rebrand a couple of things. I don't know.
Geoff, who would be your pick for the Invisalign NFL MVP? The 5 nominees are Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, Christian McCaffrey, Dak Prescott, and Brock Purdy. And obviously these awards were voted on before the playoffs. So Lamar was a gigantic favorite. He is most likely going to win. Would he have gotten your vote?
At the conclusion of week 18, I would have voted for Lamar. But this is almost like those weird situations where the NBA, like the commissioner hands out the award at, the start of the second round before the game, and then that team subsequently like gets bounced quickly, and you're like, oh shit, that kind of felt weird. They were the best team in the Premier Conference. They won the big games. Yeah, Lamar was my MVP, which made what happened in that game versus the Chiefs even more confusing.
And Tim, you've been riding hard for Lamar the entire time. Would it have been Lamar for you, Rob?
Well, if I'm voting like a traditionalist for the MVP, I'm going to vote for Lamar because I best team in the AFC, put together that great record. He's the guy that, like, when he was the MVP favorite, he won the games, right? Like he beat Purdy straight up to win that matchup, destroyed the Miami Dolphins. Everyone else kind of, when they got to the top of the MVP leaderboard, they gagged. But I'm not a traditionalist. I mean, if I was really voting, I guess I'd technically vote for someone who's not even nominated, because my definition of MVP, it's in the title. It's most valuable player. This is very easily defined for me. It's you take one player away from the team, how much does their play drop off? And I know he didn't have a great season, but to me, Patrick Mahomes is still the MVP of the league.
Yeah.
That's my like true vote. But if I'm going to be like fit in with the traditional media and I had to pick a guy like based off the storyline this year, I think Lamar Jackson.
So yeah, I mean, it'd be Lamar for me too, just because what you talked about. It's a regular season award. He played well when he needed to play the best. Like his biggest two games came in the most visible games when he became the MVP favorite. Although, Rob, Cust has been going off in our mentions, in our like group chat about Lamar, and like he's really mad that people don't consider Lamar to be the second best quarterback in football, which he's not. But
he is. He brings more value to the field than any player not named Patrick Mahomes. He's a cheat code. What he does with his legs and with his arms. I'm sorry.
That's a lie. Because maybe once upon a time that was true.
Go ahead. Why don't you make my point for me then?
No. Well, he got caught at the 50-yard line when 2 years ago he's scoring a touchdown.
Right.
Yeah. I mean,
he's like looking around like, where are
he's
the
only
guys?
been adjudged the best player in the league twice in the last 5 years. And the only active players who have as many or more MVPs than him are Rodgers and Mahomes. But you're right. He's like ninth on the list. So that's very sensible. Like that's a very good point. Like I'm sorry. I will not have it. The numbers are what they are, and they are unyielding. No player other than Mahomes contributes more to his team's performance than Lamar Jackson. The running capacity that he provides is such a boon. He is so much better at running the ball than even the best running quarterbacks. Like it's not a fair fight. And he's been MVP twice for a reason. He's the best player in the league, not named Patrick Mahomes, and I will stand on that.
Pizzola probably, I mean, he can stand on the fact that he would just rank the MVP by who means the most to the point spread. And that is probably.
I think they should change the name of the award if it's not like truly the most valuable player. Why don't you just call it the best season? Like I like that's what we're really voting this on. But
Sure.
I think Mahomes is most valuable to his team. Second to me would be Josh Allen, personally. I think there's a massive drop off there. I get what you're saying, Tim, about like what Lamar Jackson contributes with his legs, but he does have like this tendency to get shut down in bigger games. And I don't know. I mean, he's going to have to win something to dodge that at some point. I just don't have him in the two spot. I can see the argument for it. I don't think it's completely outlandish, but I don't have him there.
A fully healthy Lamar Jackson, I might put in the 2 spot, but like you run all season, you get banged up, and then it looks like you're going to run for 70 yards and you get to midfield and you're looking for the guy to tackle you safely. Weird.
Fair.
Yeah, that was weird.
Yeah. And like, Rob, if you were starting a team tomorrow with just throw contracts out of it, you get to have the quarterback to start your team with the age that they're at right now. Would Lamar be number 2 for you?
No. I mean, I'd definitely take Burrow over him. I'd take Stroud over him. I would take Justin Herbert over him. I must be missing people off the top of my head as well, but no, I wouldn't with like where they're at right now.
But Tim, you would.
I think I would. Yeah. I mean, their age, they're all basically, other than Stroud, who's a few years younger, they're all the same age. 26, 27. Like there's no advantage on age there. And I just think what Jackson provides is just simply more special than what those other guys provide. Now, the Stroud case is different. If you're building a team, he's 22 years old, and you're convinced off 1 year that he is the guy. Well, okay, I can't dissuade you from that. You're welcome to that belief. But I'm standing here with Lamar, and I feel good about it. I think there's a decent chance this is not his last MVP. How many does he have to win before people say, oh, yeah, he's one of the 2 or 3 best quarterbacks in football? Is the answer a million and he still can't be? Like at what's the threshold he has to pass for people to stop saying, oh, I can name 8 QBs I like more than Lamar Jackson?
I mean, it all comes down to, can he win a big game? And the answer is no. So until he does that,
it's just
that's
ranked
going
off
to be the
playoff
conversation.
Performance. Okay, it's just ranked off player performance. Like that seems like a very caveman way of thinking.
Things. Like, what are you talking about?
Yes and no, though. Because Josh Allen hasn't won shit either.
But people dog. That's Tim's entire case against Josh Allen, that he hasn't won shit.
No, it's not my entire case against him. He's won less than Lamar has. If we stack up their credentials,
I mean,
Lamar
Josh Allen has a better
credentials.
playoff record.
Yeah,
Lamar, they both have 1 loss in the championship game,
mm-hmm.
and Lamar has 2 MVPs, and Josh Allen isn't close to any MVP. So,
every single player that we grew up loving, was a loser before they were a winner.
Yes.
Yes, now Tom Brady's done it, and Patrick Mahomes has followed, and there's examples like Steph Curry, but even Michael Jordan was a loser. Peyton Manning was a loser. They would have been called losers in the era for which they weren't getting over that hump yet. And we're still talking about 25 and 26-year-olds. Here's the thing with Lamar Jackson. If any of the quarterbacks that Rob Pizzola named that he would have ahead of Lamar Jackson would have only cost 2 picks in compensation last year, and you would have had to give that guy the new contract, I feel like that player would have been signed to the offer sheet that for some weird reason Lamar was never signed to.
I agree with that, but he also missed the month of December and January, the 2 preceding seasons. If after this season, the exact same circumstances arose where he was available for 2 first-round picks, I think 20 teams would line up to offer those picks.
Right, but isn't that part of the conversation as well? Lamar Jackson, because of his style of play, is more likely to get injured than a Justin Herbert or something. So when you're building a team, you want a guy that's more likely going to give you the longevity and going to be able to play a full season. Now, Lamar was able to do that this year, but when you are running the ball at such a high rate relative to every other quarterback in the league, you're bound to take more hits. I think that's got to play into it. If I'm starting a roster, even if Lamar Jackson is going to give me the same performance as any other quarterback in the league, but one of them is way more likely to stay healthy over the course of a year, I'm going to take that other quarterback. And it's nothing against Lamar. It's just the style of play I don't think is conducive to mortgaging your entire future to get him as a quarterback.
I agree with that, but also, Joe Burrow's missed the lion's share of 2 of his 4 NFL seasons. So if we're going to hold it against Lamar, we should hold it against Joe Burrow too. And I don't think anybody would.
They don't, because it always feels like his injuries are more freakish in a weird way, which that's the excuse that people will make for Burrow over Lamar in that sense. But a lot of the Lamar stuff, Rob, had to do with he was representing himself. He wanted all of this guaranteed money, and he was signed to that weird non-exclusive tag where teams could come in and offer. But the Ravens always held the cards with all of this.
Yeah.
They could have matched anything.
They could have done whatever they wanted. It wasn't a foregone conclusion that if someone came in and met the price that he was going to be out of there.
Someone could have made it difficult. Someone could, because the Ravens were 12-5 this year. And they were a great team and the best regular season team in the league, arguably. And yes, they got knocked out. But there's another team that could have done something in a contract where there's a player and a half on that team that they couldn't have kept because of maybe some commitment. That's some team. I know poison pills aren't legal anymore, but if someone really wanted them, they could have gotten real creative to put Baltimore in a pickle. Not to say Baltimore wouldn't have done it, but it could have led to them having the drip down effect of what someone could have done in an offer sheet.
All right. So MVP, Lamar, round of him. And he's going to get some free Invisalign when he ends up winning. That brings us to the Coach of the Year, which is presented by Verizon. Get terrible coverage with Verizon for your Coach of the Year. I think this comes down to 2 people, but the 5 nominees are, where'd it go? Of course, they have different ones here. Let's see. Coach of the year, Dan Campbell, Detroit Lions. John Harbaugh, Baltimore Ravens. D'Amico Ryans, Houston Texans. Kyle Shanahan, San Francisco 49ers. Kevin Stefanski, Cleveland Browns. Tim, did D'Amico Ryans do enough to take this from Stefanski?
No. What Stefanski had to deal with this season with 4 different quarterbacks, the injury to Chubb, who was their most important skill position player outside of quarterback, and that he was able to conduct that team like an orchestra all the way to the playoffs with Joe Flacco, who, is falling apart because he's 5,000 years old, was one of the best coaching performances we have seen, not just this year, but in several years. I think Stefanski absolutely earned this award, and that's certainly where I would cast my ballot.
Geoff?
It's so tough because you just think about how we talked about Houston, like when he was hired through the spring. We were all part of a draft, and Houston wasn't picked.
Yep.
Okay? And they made the playoffs. So like, wow, all of us, on everybody, even the people listening. But I agree with everything Tim said. It's like the only situation which could have pulled this award from D'Amico, and Stefanski somehow did it with everything. As like, I'd just be repeating Tim.
Well, Rob, it was there a better team to lose their starting quarterback than this team that had an amazing defense at home where you just needed guys not to turn the ball over on offense?
I would say yes. There were better teams to lose their starting quarterback. It would have been teams that had better backups than PJ Walker and DTR.
Miami would have probably gone to the 1 seed with a real quarterback.
Here we go. There's better teams to. I'm really I've struggled with this one a lot because, again, if I'm going to be like analytical, I think the best way to vote for this award in the long run is you take the preseason expectation of every team and who outperformed those expectations by the most this year. And if you look at Houston's implied win total going into the year, it was 6.32 wins. They won 10 games. They made the playoffs. Cleveland's implied win total was above 9. They win 11 games. But the manner in which Cleveland got there with literally horrible backups, get a horrible starter in Deshaun Watson when he did play, and then getting people like getting Joe Flacco off the couch, I would vote Stefanski. I think he contributed more to the Browns' success than D'Amico Ryans did. In fact, I mean, I don't even really like D'Amico Ryans. I think he's a very skilled defensive mind, but I thought that offense was way too conservative for what they had at quarterback in CJ Stroud. So I would give the vote to Stefanski as well.
I too will vote for Stefanski. And a lot of it just has to do with an adjustment of what they saw when they like the decision to ride Joe Flacco when you bring him in off the street. But with the defense that they had and how they wanted to play, and eventually it all went up in flames, but just being, hey, Joe, you're going to throw the ball 60 times and you're going to throw it as far as you can every single time. If you throw a pick, that's fine. We're just looking for long scores. And if we do turn it over, we're going to rely on the defense to stop it on the other end. Like, that's quite a gamble for an offensive game plan with Joe Flacco.
Well, they tried to do that with Baker. It just didn't work. Baker was throwing like 3 interceptions a game, deep bombs down the middle of the field. And it was like, what the hell's wrong with the Browns? Why don't they just run the ball? But like they lost Nick Chubb this year as well. Like people forget about that early in the year. They went from being like this heavy running team to all of a sudden having to throw the ball. I just think that when you consider the season as a whole and the amount of negative things that happened with that offense to still be able to get to where they got, I think he did an excellent job. Not to discredit anyone else, but I don't know that there's many other coaches out there that could have got that offense to 11 wins by the end of the year.
The amount of times he encountered the challenge and overcame it, like feels unprecedented in some way.
I guess the way that I would judge it, Tim, is that it felt like Stefanski actually did something. I have no idea what D'Amico Ryans did. Like, they were kind of good because CJ Stroud was good.
Yeah, I mean, there is some of that. It's not like he made the CJ Stroud pick.
Well, he did
No, that's what I mean. That's what I mean. Like he sort of started the hand with pocket kings. Like it's not, it wasn't up to him to get dealt those cards.
Unbelievable pocket kings,
right? That's what he started the hand with. So. Like, and he made the most of it, but we didn't know that, right? At the beginning, we didn't know how great Stroud was going to be. And I think Stroud's a pretty darn good player. But yeah, coach, I mean, these things there's no mathematics, I think, to perfectly pick how you pick coach of the year, because you need to, there would be so many factors that I think would have to go into that. equation. Just what Stefanski did, I thought was so impressive that it would be very fitting to give him this award. And we should remember the job he did. And I think he's going to win his second Coach of the Year award. And yet no one talks about Stefanski as one of the best coaches in the league. And maybe we should. Because he's done it now.
Because these awards don't actually mean shit, Tim. That's like
but that's actually not true.
It's okay. So Ron Rivera is the best coach of the past 20 years because he has the most Coach of the Year awards.
I was about to say some of these awards seem to matter and some don't. It depends on the award.
We pick and choose when they matter.
Absolutely. Well, I think that's true. I think the MVP has always mattered.
Well, I would say
the MVP, but you could use Coach of the.
Go ahead, Geoff.
Like the whole Mike Vrabel thing. Like when people want to argue the case, like you can use them when you want to use them. You can use them. But I agree. Like Coach of the Year, it doesn't matter. Like I don't know. It's not prestigious, as Pizzola said. It's often just the most with the least. It should have just been Bill Belichick 12 times. Like the MVP should have gone to Jordan 12 times.
Oh, it should have been Belichick this year, Geoff. He did such a great job, you said, setting up the Patriots for a dynasty.
Oh, God, here we go.
Shouldn't it have been Belichick, the guy who can't get a job if he wanted one on the street right now? It's not like a third of the league was available and they all told him to hit the door.
Why don't I throw out your takes that you were wrong about in the fall? Like, I thought the Patriots would win 7 games. They won 3. In hindsight, winning 3 games has them 3rd overall instead of picking 14th overall. So that's it. Like, whatever, man.
I was really just taking a shot at Belichick. You were just sort of like caught in the crossfire of me taking a shot at Belichick.
I wouldn't talk too much. I wouldn't talk too much because you're running Mr. Clean back out on the sidelines next year.
Yeah, I don't think he's any good. But if Aaron's happy, then I'm happy.
Why not just let him be the player coach?
If he wanted that, I'd allow it. I'm to this point now where I'd whatever he wants, man. Like, whatever. What's the difference?
Can we say that Dan Campbell is to Coach of the Year what Josh Allen is to MVP in terms of how badly the people wanted it for both of them at points over the last 2 years?
Well, what Josh Allen is going to end up being at the end of his career in terms of the MVP award and how we talk about it every single year is Russell Wilson, who never received a vote for MVP in his career. But was always considered to be like a top 5 quarterback in his prime and won a Super Bowl.
Yeah, so that'll be the difference between Russell Wilson and Josh Allen.
Sure. I mean, Josh Allen has time in order to do that, but it's just funny that we always considered Russ to be one of these guys that was an actual game changer. But when you looked at it at the end of the year, like so much of this award is how well you play from week 14, 15, 16, and 17. Like that's really it.
Yeah, it's down the stretch. That's literally what it is. These awards are recency bias awards in a lot of cases. Like we're going to talk about defensive player of the year or defensive rookie of the year, possibly. And like Jalen Carter was lights out through the first 10 games of the year and then did nothing in the second half. And it's like, well, I guess we just forgot about that guy and his play for the first 10 games. But that's what it is, Pat. It's just like, how did you finish? Did you finish strong? Like look at the betting odds and how they move over the course of the final weeks of the season. And even like the narratives that are spun up of like, he has to beat this quarterback. He has to do that. It's not really a true reflection of the full season. It's more of a reflection of how did they end the season.
Well,
also just as a disclaimer, as you notice all these awards, they are voted on by like a majority of them, like the old guard of sports media. The PF, the Football Writers Association, that they got their voting credential 40 years ago. I'm guarantee you guys like us, guys listening, watched more ball than all of these guys.
Well, they have
not
to
all
nap
of them,
all the
not
time.
all of them, lots of them.
Well, when you're 80 years old, you got to take a lot of frequent naps on a Sunday. You just can't be up for 12 straight hours unless they're 80-year-olds using cocaine.
I mean, it's no
it's like
different
you're
than people voting for the Academy Awards who are also in their 80s and don't even watch the movies.
Yeah, at least you can get screeners sent to your house and you
Which
can
they don't
bang
watch.
off a movie here, a movie there over a month.
Yeah, which some of them watch, but I'm sure a lot of them don't.
No, for sure. That's why down the line voting in terms of Oscar betting is such a thing. Like if a movie, let's say Oppenheimer's probably going to win 10 Academy Awards anyway, but it was sort of a lock because everyone's going to vote for it for Best Picture to win sound and all that stuff. If it ends up being this juggernaut, because it's just easy to be like, well, I liked Oppenheimer. That was one of the 3 movies I saw. It had great sound. It had great visual effects that Nolan movies in general kind of do that. It happened with Mad Max that year, Tim, when you got really triggered that it won so many Oscars.
It wasn't that great of a movie.
It wasn't, but it won all the down the line ones. People voted for Mad Max in one of them, so they voted for Mad Max in all of them.
That's fair.
So that's how that stuff ends up working. The main event, though, why we're here, really, to do this show. The Let's see. The AP Comeback Player of the Year presented by P&G. What is P&G?
Procter and Gamble.
Procter and Gamble.
Profits and Ghosts. My pick is Damar Hamlin because he died and then he didn't die anymore and he played football this year. That's my pick.
I mean, I think that's all the rationale that we actually need to give. I'm also voting for Damar Hamlin. This is not to trigger Geoff in any way. I actually think Joe Flacco said it best when they asked him about the Comeback Player of the Year award, where he basically said, like, you don't understand what you have to go through, what this guy went through mentally just to get back onto the football field and playing again after suffering that event in Cincinnati. And I totally agree with it. I mean, I wrap it up. I don't care if somebody had the greatest season of all time off on the field. I'm voting Damar Hamlin Comeback Player of the Year.
Because this is and has always been, I mean, all of them are narrative awards. We even call a few of them recency bias awards. But this one, there was a reason. Like when this dropped down to even money, I kind of feel like a moron for not just backing up the Brinks truck and going forward, because you can tell a lot of the discourse around this award, Geoff. And I feel like you've seen the light. You know what's going to happen because Flacco, Baker, Stafford, and Tua are all nominated for this award. You know that there's a ton of people out there who are rightfully holding a Flacco 100-1 ticket. You're probably doing it. Baker 80-1 ticket to win Comeback Player of the Year. And a lot of the discourse you see about how ridiculous it is that Hamlin is going to win this award are from people who are holding those tickets.
Yeah, it's like, I don't know. It's probably the same discourse I made fun of last year with the people saying Dan Campbell was coach of the year. I'm like, you guys are just doing this because you have those 30-1 tickets from before the season. Yeah, I've seen the light. I could argue, I still like to make the case it's an on-field thing, but he's going to win it. And over the course of the year, we had a lot of fun. It was fun. I held to my narrative. And I think what got lost in that is my true respect for the dedication and the perseverance that it took to do Damar like people turned this into me against Damar Hamlin, and maybe there's a meme that's showing up on the page right now. Whatever. It is what it is. He just the perseverance, the dedication, he got back on the field. Now, he is going to win the award. I will still say I actually think I'd give it to Baker ahead of Flacco if we were going down the line.
Well,
I replaying the year and Baker doing that is fucking nuts. On like $4.5 million salary, what he did this year, I think like if we're just talking beyond Hamlin, as someone with the Flacco 100-1 and no Baker tickets, I would be cheering like the diner waitresses in Ohio, Pizzola, for Baker to bring this one home.
Tim, I did see that there are some people who said that there should be 2 Comeback Player of the Year awards this year.
Yeah, so that they can win their bet.
Yep.
How about that?
And I'm sure everyone wants to all get paid out on those, right? They wouldn't void those bets. Everyone just gets paid out on the 2.
And I don't know if you guys noticed, but in baseball, Liam Hendricks won Comeback Player of the Year. And I think he pitched like 5 innings because he came back from a pretty serious cancer. And there weren't assholes like me on the internet and like baseball orbit being like, what the hell? Why are you giving Comeback Player of the Year to Liam Hendricks? He only pitched 5 innings, you assholes. Like, this guy came back from a torn elbow. Like, no, baseball fans seem to be like pretty cool and calm about it. Maybe it's like not a popular bet like in the football orbit, but I found that juxtaposition pretty interesting.
Well, you have to remember the NFL is a lot more popular by and large. And a lot of the initial pushback from Hamlin not being Comeback Player of the Year when the season started, I mean, the reason that you didn't want him to be the Comeback Player of the Year is because you thought that he was a hologram and that he actually died on the field. So it didn't make sense to give it to him.
Yeah, and listen, I can Victor.
Yeah.
Whatever.
Yeah, why did he have that big scarf on and those goggles in that playoff game versus the Dolphins? We all know why. It wasn't him, was it, Geoff?
Listen,
this is a safe space. No one's going to hear this. Go ahead.
He was part of the fake punt and the too many men on the field. So yes,
he was part of some pretty negative plays this year.
Part of some bad moments in the Bills season. Yeah, it was full. And again, for me, it was all like the preseason numbers, the dumbest thing I've ever seen, because we will get riled up about players performing that we kick to the curb. And yeah, Pat, I guess in hindsight, you're right. Like I've got like a little make good bet. And me and Pizzola, I'm going to know Pizzola. It was 3 rounds of golf to 1 round of golf. So Pizzola's going to cash in this summer. There's no way he doesn't win. Congratulations, Damar. He gets an award. And don't forget, he's still got his number retired on ambulances.
I will say it's definitely the circumstances and the fact that it happened on national TV as well, and like that they canceled the game. Do any of you know who Nick Gates is? You familiar with Nick Gates?
Is he the alpha male guy?
I don't know if he's an alpha male.
Well, are you saying if this was like a Sunday?
No, wait, who am I thinking of, Tim? That guy on Twitter, the guy who's like,
yeah,
Nick
I know
Adams.
you're talking about.
Nick
Oh,
Adams.
Nick
Nick
Adams. That's
Adams.
what I'm thinking. So it's not that guy.
He's got to be a parody, isn't he?
I don't know. I find him endlessly entertaining.
It's not clear that you think he's a parody, and then you're like, maybe this is like an Andy Kaufman routine, or maybe it isn't. It's not quite certain. To me.
I'm pretty sure he's also Australian.
Yeah, he is. Or South African or something.
Yeah, he's not American.
So who's Nick Gates? He died on the field and we never cared about him?
Nick Gates, a couple years ago, is an offensive lineman for the Giants who suffered a devastating leg injury on the field where they thought he was never going to play football again, and they might have had to amputate his leg. It was that bad on the field. And last year, I'm watching Thanksgiving football, and they did like a 10-minute tribute to him during the Thanksgiving Day games of like Nick Gates is back on the roster and whatever. And I went and I threw a bunch of money on Nick Gates to win comeback player of the year because I'm like, you know what? Like if Nick Gates gets some snaps, like in this story picks up steam, everyone's going to vote for it. But guess what? Nobody voted for him because nobody knows who the hell Nick Gates is. And nobody saw this devastating leg injury that happened on the field.
That is a huge component of this, is that this happened. Bengals, Chiefs, Monday Night Football. Everyone saw it. It canceled a game. Like everyone knew about this story. If this had happened, Bengals and Bills at 1:00 on a Sunday afternoon in week 4, he probably doesn't win comeback player of the year.
Bingo.
If they stopped the game and canceled it, I think he still would have.
I don't think so, because not everyone was watching it.
But everyone would have known about it if they had canceled an NFL game.
Sure, but you could have just moved on to one of the 7 other games and not really paid attention to it.
Agreed. This had such a profound impact on people who were watching it live. And like, I'll be honest with you guys. Like I was doing a live stream of the game that night. We ended the stream and I just sat at like my desk for about half an hour because I was like shaken. You just don't see that stuff happen. It sounds really weird to say, but like, it's when you have the perspective of like, I just watched a human being die playing a football game, which is what you think happened at that time. It messes you up a little bit. And like I'm with Pat. Like it's the situation has a lot to do with it. And I think it was just like a foregone conclusion that if he made it back into the league this year, he was going to win. And I honestly think he deserves to win for that because I do think that there's like a human element to this and like a mental thing, and just being able to get back to playing football after that devastating injury like that, I think is deserving.
That's the scariest thing I've ever seen on TV. And I don't like scary movies. I don't watch scary movies, so I don't do that stuff anyway. That was like you, Rob. I remember just sitting like on the foot of my bed in front of the TV probably for at least 10 minutes. Like what the heck? Like, yeah.
You couldn't handle it, Jeff, when Cam was pulling up his shirt to show that bruise.
Oh my God. Oh my God. Yeah, I don't like that.
I was not expecting that either, to be fair, Tim. I thought he was over exaggerating what had happened to, because Cam tends to do that. I love the guy. Love the guy. But when I did see that bruise, oh my God.
All right. Offensive player of the year. I actually think this is the most competitive category. It is the Microsoft Surface offensive player of the year.
Mm-hmm.
Are you a Mac man, Rob, or are you a Microsoft man?
I'm a either works for me man. So
are you a
like
tablet person?
No.
Neither am I really.
I do tablets for making some bets here and there, like when I'm rushing in real time, but I'm not. I'm just like a whatever the world hands to me, I'm gonna make it work type of situation. Right now, I am using a PC. However, I've used Mac many times before. I have an Android, but I'll switch to iPhone in a couple of years. I go with the flow, Pat. I go with the flow.
Yeah, because Tim, you and I are iPhone men.
Yes.
That way we can have our
Apple
blue group
people. Apple people through and through. I couldn't imagine using a PC, and I've actually never seen
Someone's
use
got to
a
support
Surface.
the competition.
You've never
I
seen
liked
anyone
Apple's
what?
before. I've never seen a Surface in the wild. I have to say.
They had on the NFL sidelines is about the only spot. I've
Yeah,
seen a
like I'm sure they
Surface.
exist, obviously, but I don't know if I've ever seen anybody at their home or whatever pull out their tablet and it's a Surface.
I'm convinced that they probably sold surfaces only because Tom Brady kept slamming them on the sidelines. And that's like the only reason they were ever getting any publicity. People were like, what is that? Maybe I'll check out whatever they're using. Other than that, I've honestly never seen a surface either.
So the nominees for this award, Geoff: Tyreek Hill, Lamar Jackson, CeeDee Lamb, Christian McCaffrey, and Dak Prescott. I mean,
For me, it's easy.
See, I don't think that it is. I think it's between Hill and McCaffrey if Lamar's the MVP.
Okay, fine. But and I probably do agree. But for me, one of those players
Justin Herbert
had Tua in the MVP conversation.
Yep.
One of those players was so good that Tua might have been the favorite one morning post week 5 or 6 to win MVP.
Okay, why
enough for
can't
me.
you make that same argument with Christian McCaffrey, who has Brock Purdy actually in the MVP final 5?
That's a great point, Patrick. That is an excellent point. I had thought ways to come back certain points that could be thrown my way. I forgot the fact that McCaffrey made an MVP himself.
The argument against that is that there were receivers on the 49ers that had more of an impact on Purdy's overall production than Christian McCaffrey did.
Okay, so what you're saying, Rob, is that it should be McCaffrey because you had all these guys taking away all these stats and touches from Christian McCaffrey, and he was still able to do all this.
No, there was a part of the year.
That's not what I'm suggesting.
Tyreek Hill felt uncoverable at times, like literally uncoverable. What are you supposed to do? He'll go over the top. He'll catch it 1 yard behind the line of scrimmage. Whatever they wanted to do for a period of time this season, and maybe I'm fixated on like that moment in time where they did everything they wanted. It looked so easy for a quarterback who makes so much look hard.
Like, I know that he banged up his ankle, but like he did not have a good end of the season.
He did not. But again, so it's like, do we go with the recency bias? I mean, McCaffrey's banged up towards the end of the year as well. I've gone back and forth on this a million times. I think this is like one of the hardest neck and neck battles. And the fact that like these guys had such great years that me as a Cowboys fan, like CeeDee Lamb had an incredible year and he's not even in the conversation. That puts into perspective how great the years were. I would vote for Tyreek Hill because I think that he, relative to previous wide receiver years, like when he was healthy this year, there's just no covering the guy. Like there's no game plan you could put into place. They tried to double him and he was still getting open against double teams down the field. He had 3.83 yards per route run this year. That is miles ahead of anyone. The previous person that did that was Steve Smith back in 2008, over 15 years ago, and he destroyed that number. I think McCaffrey had a great year, but there was just times where you could not take Tyreek Hill away, and teams were trying to take him away, and they couldn't take him away. And when you have someone that is almost impossible to game plan against, to me, that's the offensive player of the year.
Tim?
I'm torn. I actually think it's a three-way race because I think Lamb has had every bit the season that those two did.
It's funny because I was going to say that Dak, I think, should get some real... Dak is probably number 2 in the MVP, just based on the way that he played. But now we just like, oh, yeah, shit, he lost in the first round. He sucks. So we don't even like think about to bring him up. But his season's pretty amazing, too.
It was excellent, and Lamb's was excellent. Like, I guess ultimately I will throw my lot in with McCaffrey for the versatility factor, 21 touchdowns and, you've managed in just 200, you managed, to run it for nearly 1,500 yards plus catch it for over 500. Like, hard to surpass that. We just don't see players do that anymore. I'm gonna give it to McCaffrey, but reluctantly, and I actually would have Lamb second. I think Hill was for the first half of the season the clear runaway favorite, but he faded in the stretch, in part because he was injured, but in part because teams started to figure him out a little bit. He was perfectly healthy when they played the Chiefs, and he did nothing in the first time they played in Germany. So don't tell me he's like the world's fastest player and he's uncoverable, because the facts don't bear that out.
Yeah, for whatever reason, Rob, Tim has this whole thing that Tyreek Hill is not actually fast.
No, it's just he's not the fastest player you've ever heard of. He's not Usain Bolt out there like some people like to pretend that he is.
I think that people really confuse like straight line speed when you're testing versus in-game speed. Like the two fastest players I've ever seen in-game are Tyreek Hill and Dante Hall. I mean, it's not even close.
Yeah. He's such a great route runner, great hands. Like, complete package. I really have a tough time with this award because I actually do think you can make arguments for so many people. And it comes down to like, I don't think he should be penalized all that much for the injury at the end of the year, but I can see how someone thinks that should matter and he shouldn't get the award. I just think that he was by far the biggest difference maker on offense this year. And if you just like remove a player from a lineup that's a non-quarterback, I think that the Miami offense would struggle the most out of any team without him.
That's interesting. So, Tim, who do you think would be more of an impact? Like the replacement level player you'd have to put in for Tyreek Hill on the Dolphins with Tua, or what would Elijah Mitchell's stats be if he just did McCaffrey's role?
Yeah, probably like 70% of what McCaffrey does, something like that. But so you take Tyreek out, and the Dolphins lose 26-0 instead of 26-7 in the playoffs. Is that the argument? Like, I don't.
Well, it's a touchdown difference.
So now we're holding. So are we saying that Hill and Tua are judged on their playoff stuff for not winning a big game, but Lamar shouldn't be held to that standard?
No, I'm thinking the Dolphins have other playmakers. If you put one of the scrub receivers the Dolphins pull out of the woodwork every year, I think he would also give you like 65 to 70% of the stats that he'll gives you, and that whatever. Like,
Braxton Berrios is going to do that.
Yeah, Braxton
Robbie
Berrios,
Chosen.
They have a lot of they have a lot of other playmakers.
Cedric Wilson, like, what are you talking about? Who are you talking about?
They have running backs that they can feed the ball to a lot who are super fast, like A-Chain's back.
Yeah,
A-Chain's
fast. But Mostert is fast as well. I mean, he's
and Mostert, like, I'm not convinced that Hill is like this irreplaceable player. In fact, he's so good that the Chiefs got rid of him and are about to win the second consecutive Super Bowl without him.
It's not just that he runs by. It's like he gets the ball behind the line of scrimmage, and you see like 2 or 3 defenders in position A to be able to do it, to bring it. And then he's still getting like a huge chunk play out of it.
I guess we'll see when Hill gets injured next year if River Craycraft can step in there and Robbie Chosen and the ghost of Chase Claypool. If
I like Claypool. I think Claypool.
Well,
I actually think Claypool's a decent receiver who doesn't get an opportunity to play, but that's a separate issue.
So what you're saying is that if Tyreek Hill doesn't play a snap next year for the Dolphins, Chase Claypool will have, according to you, I want this on the record,
60% of what Hill could do.
So he will have 75 receptions for 1,142 yards, and he'll have,
if they target him like Hill, they target Hill, but they wouldn't target him like they target.
Oh, so
there's a reason for that, Tim. There's obviously a reason that they would not target him as much as Hill. It's because he's clearly not on the same planet.
Hill's a lovely player, but like he's not the best. He's not even the best receiver in the NFL. Like if we were doing, you talked about QB drafts. You had a receiver draft for 1 year. I'm not taking him first. I'm not taking him second. I'm probably not taking him third. Like.
Who would you take? 1, 2, 3.
I mean, I would take
Garrett Wilson, wouldn't you?
No,
I would not.
Jefferson, CeeDee Lamb, and then who's third?
And Chase Claypool.
Yeah. No, but look, I mean, look at the season that Jamar Chase had without a quarterback, essentially. Tell me he's not a better receiver top to bottom. I would tell you that he is a better receiver.
Look at the season Tyreek Hill just had without a quarterback.
Well, no, Tyreek Hill had such a bad quarterback that he was in the MVP race, so it doesn't cut both ways. Look, if you ask me, I would take A.J. Brown over him. I would take Jamar Chase over him. I would take Lamb over him.
Would you take Garrett Wilson over him?
No, I would not. And
Justin Jefferson would probably be up there.
Yeah, Justin Jefferson. He's like right on the line with someone like he's like an Amon-Ra St. Brown style.
Oh, come on.
Amon-Ra was third in the league in receiving and like had 120 catches this year.
Yeah, because but you also have the game-breaking upside of Tyreek Hill, who can take one of these for 70 yards.
He's like the 6th or 7th best receiver. Is a
fantastic possession receiver, and listen, he's probably a top 10 receiver in the NFL. To compare him to Tyreek Hill is
Hill's a top 10 receiver, but he's not a top 3 receiver. I don't think he is. I'm sorry, I just told you that, and maybe he'll win the award, but Lamar's going to win MVP, and you guys would all have him 12th. So how is it any different than the argument that was being marshaled earlier?
Because no one said what you just said. And
well, no, I'm being slightly hyperbolic.
But you're not. You're trying to misrepresent what we're saying because you're wrong, and no one agrees with you. Who has agreed with you so far on this Lamar thing that you've talked to?
I can think of one person who agrees, and honestly, who the hell cares?
Was it Lamar that agrees?
We have a friend who's he just owns a bunch of Lamar jerseys.
Like, who cares? Like, I'm not out here. Like,
You,
I don't
you
understand
are the
how
one who
valuable
seems
that
to
argument
care. Like,
is.
you get really triggered every time it gets brought up.
Well, no, I just am annoyed when people just shrug off being named the best player in the league 2 years out of 5. And like, oh, well, but he's not that great. And like, come on. Hill's fine. Hill's like a 6th or 5th receiver, but I just gave you guys legitimately I'd rather have than him. And I think you deep down, you probably would too.
I can see it with, I'd rather have him over Chase, but that's a real argument. And Jefferson. I'd rather have him than Lamb, but all those
Is this
guys,
like a
those,
keeper
those
argument?
four would be in
And
the
I didn't
mix.
even mention Cooper Kupp.
No,
Listen,
not
Cooper
Cooper
Kupp
Kupp.
is washed
Get out of
now.
town,
No,
Tim.
he's not even the best receiver on his team anymore.
Maybe. I don't know about that.
Did you watch the Rams?
They don't have the burst, man. He doesn't have the burst anymore. He just
Maybe
doesn't.
Tim is talking about this in the context of like a keeper fantasy because Tariq's a little older.
Mm.
Maybe.
But I don't understand how he's talking about the season we just watched.
I mean, what part of the season? The first 2 months when it was excellent, or the second half of the season before he got hurt when he was declining?
I don't like Pizzola. I'm going to give him, I'm not holding like having a ankle sprain the last 2.5 weeks of the season against him.
I was wearing a walking boot off the field and he was still performing in games. It's not like he was like being shut out. He was still beating receivers. I'm wearing a walking boot midweek.
This has to be like in the Dolphins' hate. Like you
Yeah,
have
of
to be
course.
clouded by this.
No, it's not that at all.
It doesn't seem like a fair and balanced opinion.
I just am not particularly enthralled compared to other performances. Sorry, that's the way I feel. I'm not
Well,
apologizing for it.
Well, that brings us to the midway point of the show, which means it is a previously teased Cust Corner.
Cust Corner, it's Cust Corner. Cust Corner, it's Cust Corner. He's got the hottest takes with the highest stakes. He should be president of the United States, but it's Cust Corner, it's Cust Corner. Cust Corner,
I think pickleball is so cool.
Oh
I'm just going to stand right on the right out there on the parapet and say it. I think it's so neat. And I think it should be an Olympic sport. If table tennis is an Olympic sport and tennis is an Olympic sport, how can the sport, which is sort of an amalgam of these two Olympic sports, not be an Olympic sport? It's one of the fastest, if not the fastest growing sport in the world. It is fun. It is athletic. It takes skill and talent. I'm not good at it. I don't have the skill for it.
Well, you've never played it.
No, I haven't, but I've watched a lot of it. I'm not very good at table tennis, so like I know I would not be better at a bigger version of it. But I think it's an incredibly impressive, fun sport, and I think it's growing. And I think the Olympics should include, rather than having like fake whitewater rafting like they do in the Olympic Games, they should have something like pickleball, which people can relate to. I think it's fun. It looks really neat. I am a supporter of it as an activity.
I remember when you got super triggered that some of the X Games stuff ended up in the Olympics, and now
Yes.
you want pickleball in, which is a sport for 80-year-olds.
It's not a sport for 80-year-olds.
It is a sport.
It's a sport for all ages.
Okay, I mean, maybe if your athletic level as a mid-30, you can play some pickleball with the 70-year-olds that you know. Rob, who have you seen play pickleball? What do you say the average age of your typical pickleball player is? 56?
Average 50.
Really?
It gears older. It's not quite at the level of shuffleboard, but it's gears older. I'm going to say, Pat, I actually think Tim made a lot of valid points here. I know this is insane, but if ping pong, like table tennis and whatever are Olympic sports, I get that argument. I think it makes logical sense. The problem is everyone seems to like to play pickleball, but they've televised pickleball on ESPN before. It doesn't draw any ratings. In fact, I could say it's arguably the worst sport I've ever watched. There's nothing going. The rallies are way too long. They can't finish anything. Like it's not a great sport that's conducive to viewing or betting, in my opinion. That's really going to hinder it going forwards. But if the argument is that, well, there's these other sports that are similar, that are Olympic sports, I don't think it's I disagree with a lot that Tim says. But this one, I think there's some validity to this.
It just reminds me of the main reason, like who do I know that plays pickleball? I mean, I tried it once. It was fine. You don't really do anything. You just kind of stand there and go like this.
Yeah.
Like my mother-in-law plays it. She's 68. All of her friends, my dad's friends play it. They're like 61. My grandfather played it. It's all people that used to play tennis that can't play tennis anymore because tennis is too much work. It's too athletic. So it's sort of like the minor league version of tennis or badminton.
I would agree with that. I've played pickleball before. Yeah, I mean, I'd rather play squash, something that gives me like a little bit more entertaining.
Or moving, like actually running around. It's basically tennis without the cardio.
Yeah, I think that's a fair assessment. I don't want to offend pickleball players. Like
I mean, if you're like 31,
you guys are going to get
man,
some letters. You're
pickleball
going to
is
get some
legit."
letters.
I'm not out to offend in any way. To each their own. It definitely skews to like an older demographic for sure, because of like the athleticism that's required for that is very different than what Pat's mentioning. I'm just kind of out on pickleball because I don't see it as like anything that I'm ever going to watch. It just doesn't have that. I'll sit down and I'll watch tennis. Hell, I'll watch curling. I'll watch ping pong if I see it come across my YouTube feed or something like that. The chances I'm ever going to watch a full pickleball match are zero because it's just too boring. There's not enough action to finish rallies. That's my thoughts on pickleball.
Geoff, you're in Florida right now. And listen, I'm not anti-pickleball, as there shouldn't be pickleball places for people to go to play. But like I said, it skews older. That, I don't know, if you're like 35 and you start playing pickleball, that's sort of like the societal equivalent, Geoff, of just wearing sweatpants every day and not even owning a pair of slacks.
Yeah, or it's like if you're 35 and playing pickleball, it's like getting your friends together and playing Candyland instead of a board game that I guess adults would play.
Now that's just a drive-by smear.
Why?
No, I mean, like, you're capable of so much more at 35. You could be playing like you could be actually still doing the active sports. Everything that said I could just piggyback, like Pat said it. My mom is like super into pickleball right now. So it's like, I'm not in pickleball. Like when I get there, I'll get there, but that's not
great. Then
me.
it gives an activity for people of a certain age to be out and active and physical.
And it's great for them. That's good. That is good
which
for them.
Which one of us said that it wasn't?
Well, of the three of you, Geoff has been the most denigrating.
He just said that his mom plays it.
Yeah, but just the tone of voice seemed to be very dismissive.
His family supports it. I don't know.
Do you not agree that like at 35 years old, you and your buddies could just be playing like pickup basketball, not
No,
pickleball?
I do not agree. No, I do not agree. I actually think that it would be a far better thing to play than pick up basketball. People would get genuinely hurt.
I mean, we did have a friend who did get genuinely hurt playing pickup basketball.
I played on that team. Multiple people on that team.
I mean, I still play squash. I still go and play squash with friends. I don't ever call my like out of shape friends to go play squash, but my in shape friends, that's what we go and do.
Okay.
I would hope like when I'm doing these sorts of things, like I'm pretty laissez-faire. Like I'm not diving for a ball. I'm not running into a fence. I'm not like trying to save a ball and out of bounds playing 2-and-2 hoops with my buddy. That sucks if someone's going to get hurt.
Jeff. Surprises me a little bit.
But we have friends that are like that though, and that's how they hurt themselves.
That's exactly.
I can think of some right off the top of my head.
Like I had a friend too had to run into the wall in like men's softball. Like, dude, are you kidding? He broke his shoulder. Like, what are you doing? Who gives a shit if that guy gets a double? Like, who gives a shit?
He does, damn it.
Cares about the game. He's competitive.
Listen, I get what Geoff is saying about like, because I am someone who would be like, it's either in you or it's not in you. When you start competing over something, like everything that came back when you were like 18 or 20 or 13, whatever it is, the last time that you played some sort of competitive sport, that when you are playing, be it golf or squash or tennis or like the stuff that people in their like late 30s or early 40s might pick up basketball, that you really only have one gear, and that gear is what you've always done, Rob.
Okay, so Tim should go Google the pickleball injury scene. What's happening to these 65-year-olds who haven't, trying to reach low for a shot, trying to like do a quick two-step? They're going down.
Listen, I appreciate that it gets older people moving. It's like gentle aquafit for Tim instead of like going to do laps at the pool or something like that. Like there are certain things that you don't want. You don't want some like out of shape 71-year-old trying to run a marathon or something like that because they're probably going to die. But
I'm pro, getting out, being active. I'm just saying, it's for the older people. It's not like the safe. There's these guys that are trying to give her. They're getting hurt too. It's not this super safe activity as it's being portrayed. Like, go ask the doctors.
Well, one thing that is very good about it is that it's super cheap and it's easy to get together. Like, obviously golfing is so much better for you as an older person. If you're walking the entire, like walking 18 holes, like 5 miles, whatever it is over a golf course, is going to do more for you than pickleball. But the barrier of entry to golf is so much higher than it would be for pickleball. You need to like go to a converted tennis court and own a racket and a ball and like know 3 people. That's all you need.
I've seen Geoff off the tees walking way more than 5 miles. I'll tell you that. Guy spraying the ball all over the place. 8.5 miles minimum for Fienberg. The only way this picks up though is if the older people are getting their kids involved. Like, because I remember like I'm thinking of when my dad turned 50, let's say, and you know, we would still shoot basketball together, play some hoops or whatever. If he like said to me, Rob, let's go for like a pickleball game, I probably would have been like, no, this is not happening. So like the sport needs to pick up some of the younger demographic. Once it does, then you can get into like the Olympic conversation that Tim's talking about and like, you know, more athletic competition. Aside from that, like it just doesn't have the appeal, I think, for the younger demographic right now.
Yeah. And Tim, I kind of agree with Rob. Like it could be in the Olympics. Why not? There's ridiculous things. They're putting flag football in the Olympics.
They are, which is kind of silly.
Yeah. Tyreek is going to be awesome on that team, by the way. He'd be my number 1 pick.
As someone like as us familiar here in Canada with how that kind of went away because of insurance in the pro and the Olympics, I'll believe it when I see it. I'll honestly believe it when I see it.
Yep. But Rob, you know NHL better than all of us. What is the main reason that the NHLers aren't playing in the Olympics? Is it insurance, or is it like Gary Bettman being like mad that they're playing in the Olympics?
It's mostly like the teams don't get anything out of it, right? So they don't want their players, the league, same thing. They don't want their players at risk. Now, technically, they do get something out of it in the form of like, it's on a national stage. More people are finding out about hockey and these players, and they might be more likely to watch an NHL game. But it's really just comes down to money. And since the players, the team in the league are not getting anything out of it in terms of compensation, they're like, well, when they're not sending our players,
I don't even think the NHL could put highlights on their Twitter, like the IOCs, like, right? So there was so many layers of, and let alone like the travel and when they had Olympics in like South Korea and stuff. It's probably coming back though, as they come back to North America for an Olympic Games, but it was multi-layered.
The next Olympics are not in North America, Jeffrey. They're in Italy.
Yep.
I know, but when I think it's going to come, Salt Lake City, I think is getting one again.
Maybe.
I assume NHL players will be back in the Olympics soon at some point.
I don't know. I don't feel deprived not having them in the Olympics. I have to be honest with you.
The hockey does kind of suck, though. Like, let's be honest. Like,
it does, but like, I'm not. You're right, but I'm not watching the
Olympics.
I'm not watching the Olympics to watch NHL players. Like, that's just not my vibe. That's not what the Olympics are about. Same way that, like, if the NBA players stopped playing in the basketball tournament, that wouldn't bother me because, like, I'm not watching the Olympics to watch LeBron James. Like, that's just not, you know, that the NBA exists for that, not the Olympics, right?
It's funny because hockey would be basically the only time I would really watch hockey would be at the Olympics, because it'd be like, hey, this is the best of the best. And they did take hockey very seriously. It's tough to take the basketball too seriously because it's like, it's America and their amazing team. And you have to hope that like one of 3 awesome players on one of these other teams goes nuclear and can beat America. Like, there's not really any competition there. You know, it's going to be the States. They had like one really bad year when I think like Greece beat them or something in 2004. But with hockey, there's like legit 8 competitive teams that could win it. It was like the highest level of hockey with all of the best players in a real competition between 8 countries, basically.
I find it very enjoyable. The reality is, though, as a Canadian, I don't think that the U.S. is that far off of Canada. And honestly, probably 10 years from now, U.S. is better at hockey overall than Canada. So if it's not in the Olympics and I don't have to watch Canada lose the gold medal to the U.S., I'll be okay with that as well. So no sweat off my back. I'm kind of with Tim. Like, my Olympic experience, I'll watch, 3 hours of ski jumping and I'll have a great time watching that. I watch figure skating, curling, luge. Like, I don't give a shit. I like to watch the Olympics for sports that I never watch. The hockey is like, would be a bonus, but like, I don't need it there. It's not
let them develop a Canada Cup and let the NHL and the NHLPA work out a best of the best tournament on their own time and let the Olympics be what the Olympics are.
But it won't rate I don't think it would rate the same way. Like, you can make the Olympic tournament, call it something else, but if it's not actually in the Olympics, no one's going to watch it. Like, this is the Olympics were the best sell job that you could have for the NHL. Like, these are the best players. Like, isn't hockey great for all the people that wouldn't tune into a random St. Louis Blues game on a Tuesday night? Like, it was the best marketing that they could have, and now no one watches it.
Good point. I agree.
And if you call it the World Cup of hockey, no one's going to watch that either. People watched it because people were watching the Olympics, and then people got into it.
Agreed.
Anyway, the McRib is back, Tim. I saw.
I'm very excited about this. The McRib is back. I'm not as excited as some people who are apparently almost in tears about it. They're so excited. But
How long has it been gone from
Who's
Canada?
almost in tears?
it hasn't been. There was an article I was sharing today of people who were talking about how they're in tears. It hasn't been here. It hasn't been in Canada since February of 2014. So it's been 10 years since the McRib has been in Canada. And today it was rolled out. And I am excited. I think this is great marketing. The same way that like Tim Hortons bringing back their old donuts this month was like smart marketing. I think these companies know exactly what they're doing by having a product people demand and then taking it away for
But
a
it's
while
been
and
in the
giving it back
States
to them.
forever, hasn't it?
No,
They had the same thing going on in the States too, where it would be around for like 7 weeks and then it would go away. And it would come like it's never been a staple, always on the menu piece, and it's quite strategic that way.
Well, do you know why that's the case, Tim?
My guess is there's probably got to be resourcing reasons as to like availability of product, because otherwise, I can't imagine why people love it.
I can tell you why.
And maybe it couldn't meet our like our FDA standards here.
Well, no, because it's the same thing in the States. Like, you can't just go at any point during the year and order a McRib. Like, it still has its like specialty lane, doesn't it?
I believe so. I don't believe that it's not a standard on the menu every single day, 365 day a year menu item.
Because it's horrible. That's
It's
why.
shit.
It is
Exactly.
inedible.
Well, if that were the case, then why is there like a
keep
fan
it
club?
away for long enough that people forget how terrible it is, and they're like, "Oh yeah, the McRib, I'll go have one." Then they have one, they're like, "Oh my god,
Pat
This is
nailed
horrible.
this. He nailed this on the head so well. Tim's point is accurate too. It's a good marketing. I'm going to get myself a McRib at some point, and then I'm going to say to myself, "Why the hell did I do this to myself?"
I'm never doing it again.
And then I'm done with this, and I won't do it again for this run. And 10 years from now, they'll bring it back, and I'm going to go and get myself another McRib and be like, couldn't have been as bad. Maybe I just got a bad McRib the last time around. But my experience with the McRib is that it is a shit sandwich. And I tend to agree with Pat. I think it's not on the menu, because if it was, nobody would consistently order it.
No, I don't agree. No, I understand that position. I do not take that position. I think it's an item that it has a cult following, that there are some devoted people who absolutely adore, and they don't have it on all the time to drive extra interest in marketing behind it and extra attention.
The same people that like are into the culture of the McRib are the same losers that sit in McDonald's 7 days a week. Like, you're not getting extra
Well, first,
money.
they're not losers.
Yeah, I mean, they are.
Don't call them losers.
They're losers.
I'm not here to judge those people. They may be retirees. That's where they
Why?
go. every day.
Why
Remember-
are you trying to trade like McDonald's hockey cards with them, and so you don't want to like say negative things?
No, I just don't think that I'm not here to judge them and say that they're losers because they go to McDonald's every day. How is it any different than the people who go to the mall food court every day and get coffee and a scratch ticket and chat with their friends every morning? They're not losers.
I mean, that sounds like a pretty horrible lifestyle.
I think that sounds like a great way to be.
Because you want to
a
live
retired
like you
person.
don't have a job and you're 90 years old.
I'm not going to judge them and say that they're losers. I don't believe that they are.
That you would go to a McDonald's restaurant every day and sit there for 3 hours in the morning.
If that's what makes you happy, I wouldn't judge that. There are worse places to be and worse things to do.
You'd rather fucking smoking crack rock than do
And the McRib is, I haven't had it in a long time. I think I said to you guys on our thread, the last time I had it was in Niagara Falls, New York. So that wasn't yesterday.
That's exactly when I had it as well. And I couldn't believe how bad we had this discussion. And you hated it at the time.
I don't remember hating it. I have no
You just
recollection.
don't remember
It's-
things. Like it's a trigger in the back of your
No,
head. Like,
no,
you
but
don't
Pat, this
remember
is your
when
point.
you don't like things.
It was so long ago. He's adopted your exact theory on this, that he just has the nostalgia for it. He doesn't remember how bad it was the last time he had it.
Like, we all ordered a McRib that day. It was, I think, it was either 2010 or 2011
It was
during
2010.
football season. We drove from Toronto to Buffalo, and we stayed on the American side of Niagara Falls. Whoa, what a town! Classy place. But they had a McRib there. Going to see a
Whirlpool
Bills
Lane.
game. What?
On Whirlpool Lane.
Yeah, it's the
where the
only
golf
road in
course is?
town. But we all, the three of us who were there, we all got McRibs, and we all ordered something else, Tim, that day. Because we
I'm
took two bites of it, and it was so disgusting. We had to order something else and go.
See, I don't remember that part of it, honestly. I only remember getting the McRib, and I don't even remember my opinions on it.
And that's why they bring it back every decade, Tim, because
But
it's
you can only
long
pull the
enough
wool
that you
over
could
people's
forget how bad it was the previous time around.
I think you can only pull the wool over people's eyes once. Like the
No,
second
10
time
years-
around, they remember.
No, 10 years is long enough where, like, you're going to Duke's, you see that sign, the barbecue sauce is dripping off the side. 10 years is definitely enough time to bring me back in again, even if it was horrible.
Yep.
I mean, you drench your chicken nuggets in that barbecue sauce. How could you not love the McRib? It seems like it's tailor-made for you, Patrick.
I mean, I don't think I've had chicken nuggets in 10 years. So,
But you
that's
love
one-
to coat them in the barbecue sauce.
Tailor-made.
I
for
did.
you.
I mean, that is a nostalgia play on my part. Like, I couldn't do that now because that's too much sugar for me in that barbecue sauce. But that's what I
God, do
did
you
when I was
remember
6
how
years
you
old.
ate
That's
in
always how I ate
college?
nuggets. And that's different barbecue sauce. They don't use the same barbecue sauce as like the packets as they would on the McRib.
I think they do, don't they?
No, I think it's different.
I
do
feel
think
like it's different, slightly different color, if I recall.
Yeah, it's darker.
Yeah. It's more like a Texas barbecue.
Yeah, I think you're right, Rob.
That's
Tim,
my
will you
recollection. But it's been
fairly-
so
will you-
long. I don't know. I don't
Tim,
know.
will you fair and balanced review it, or you're gonna have to stand that it's like awesome?
I would love to. In fact, maybe when we do our live show after the Super Bowl, maybe we could do a taste test of the McRib on air.
You're gonna eat one way before then, though.
No,
No, okay,
Tim's
I
just
can
trying to
resist for
get
that.
someone else to buy him a freaking sandwich. This
stop
is
it, stop it, Paul. Stop it,
what
stop it.
happens.
Stop it, Paul.
If only they brought the McRib around the Monopoly time, that would just be Tim's life is over. If that
If they,
happened.
it would be a bit much. I really haven't been there much since Monopoly ended, and then now I feel a real pull to go and try it.
Do you throw away your food outside of Monopoly season, or is that just during Monopoly season?
Look, when you get that large fries, if you're doing 2-a-days, you can't finish the large fries. Okay, you can't finish it all. So I don't have any shame in saying that like a third of that carton has to go away. It's their fault. It's not my fault they make me buy the large. If they put the stickers on healthy things, I'd buy the healthy things. If they put them on the mediums, I'd buy the mediums. I think their new campaign of having these mini meals is a super smart idea. The McDouble with the small fries and the small Diet Coke.
You mean
Like,
a
that's a-
Happy Meal?
No, but it's not a Happy Meal.
It's
right? Like,
it's an
a
adult
Happy
meal.
Meal.
It's an adult
Happy Meal.
That's probably not
So it
in
makes
the
you not feel like a
States.
child.
no, it's a way for you to have the right amount. For a lot of people, that's the amount of McDonald's that they want.
Do you know what it honestly is, Tim? It's because McDonald's has gotten so freaking expensive that they've just made like a
Yeah,
more
there's that too.
economical combo.
There-
That's
yeah.
what that is.
That's
nothing
totally
to
the
do-
case as well.
Well, let's get back into the awards because we have to talk about the defensive player of the year. What's this one? Let's see here. The defensive player of the world presented by TCL, which I think is one of those like crappy TVs that you can buy at Costco. I think. I suppose I could effort the Googling on that. But Deron Bland is one of the finalists for the defensive player of the year, which is crazy. Max Crosby, Myles Garrett, Micah Parsons, and TJ Watt. The other four, yes. Rob, you're a Cowboys fan. Is Deron Bland even any good?
Yeah, he's like an above average corner. He takes a lot of gambles. I think they're coached. The Cowboys defense is coached that way by Dan Quinn. I would not have him on the ballot of the 5 defensive players in the league purely because of his pick sixes. But yeah, he's a fine player, just nowhere near the elite level that should be in this category.
I asked Pat on Thanksgiving night if Deron Bland would be a nominee for defensive player.
No,
of the
you
year.
said
Told
is
me
he
I
going
was
to
out
win?
of my
No,
mind.
you said is he going to win defensive player?
And you
of-
said there's no way he'll be nominated.
well, I didn't think that
And then he was
would, 'cause
nominated.
He is nominated. I don't think that he should be because if you just kind of go look at his picks versus touchdowns given up, there's a reason that they throw at him all game because he's not that good.
That's fair.
If he was actually good, they wouldn't throw in his direction at all, like they do with all the best corners. They're like, no, we're just going to try to pick on this guy. He might pick it off. He might return it. That'll be great and everything. But no, we're just going to try to score 80-yard touchdowns on this guy. Great defender, though. Fantastic. Who do you think is missing from this nominee?
So we said we got Garrett, Watt,
Parsons
Wilson.
and Crosby.
I would say like per my numbers, this would be like a way off the board pick, but I think had a really, really good year that went unnoticed because of his team, is Dexter Lawrence. I thought he was like extremely impactful defensive player, both in the run and pass game. I don't know that like you can really nitpick a lot of these because there's so many good pass rushers that are like interchangeable in the league. But I think Dexter Lawrence, who's more of an interior defender, would never get nominated, but I think is the guy that would be deserving.
Who's your pick, Geoff?
Hard to go against Myles Garrett, in my opinion. That would be my pick.
Yeah.
What a compelling case that was.
Yeah.
No, I don't know. Like, what am I supposed to argue? Like, I don't care to. Like, the only guy I would have actually talked down was Deron Bland for the same reason you guys already talked him down. And Micah just felt like there's a bit of a fall off, and I think Miles is better than TJ Watt, and Max Crosby would be the fourth of the big four here for me. So
it is pretty shocking to see the Steelers record and ATS record without TJ Watt.
Which is why I think I would cast my ballot for him. I just think he's the most valuable defensive player to his team.
But that's not
That's
really
why
how they pick the award.
Well, okay, but it's my choice as to how I want to vote on this, and that's why I'm going to go with TJ Watt.
Okay.
If I was voting, that's who I'd pick. Not to say any of these guys, the other four, less so Bland, but the other three are very highly deserving, and I wouldn't object. But I think I'd give it to Watt.
Yeah, I'm going to take Garrett Robb as my pick. Who ended up being the betting favorite in this?
I believe Myles Garrett closed like minus 200 in the betting markets here, with Micah Parsons actually second and TJ Watt third. I will pick Myles Garrett. It's no disrespect to any of the other players, but Garrett on a pure down-to-down basis was so incredibly consistent this year. His pass rush win rate is like the highest we've seen in the NFL in a decade. Arguments for all three, but I would go with Myles Garrett as well. Not to mention the guy gets held on like literally every other play on top of that.
Rob, can I put you on the spot? Like, is there like two players you could name that like could be on this list next year that, even for like guys that watch all the ball, like just, defensive names sometimes, because we don't do it with fantasy, that could like fall through the crack?
Based off of the age curve, if he didn't get injured this year, I would have said Jalen Phillips, but now because of the injury, probably not going to happen. I'd have to look a little bit deeper. Maybe 2 years from now, Will Anderson might not be far off from there. I think maybe next year's a little bit early. I'd have to look. You did put me on the spot, Geoff. I'd have to look a little bit.
No, but that was a good one. I did like that Jalen Phillips call. And if you didn't have that injury, I would have been like, yeah, great shout.
Mm-hmm.
Quentin Williams is pretty darn good.
Yeah.
Offensive Rookie of the Year. No sponsor for Offensive Rookie of the Year, but I guess we have to give out the award anyway. Jahmyr Gibbs, Sam Laporta, Puka Nacua, Bijan Robinson, and CJ Stroud. Stroud is clearly the runaway winner here.
Yeah.
I think he closed minus 10,000 or something like that. But very strong crop of rookies offensively this year, I think.
Oh, yeah, for sure. I mean, there's no way that Stroud cannot win this award. Like, it's impossible that he can't. But, yeah, like, Puka Nacua had this year. Any other year, he probably would have run away with it as well. So it was a strong year for offensive rookies.
I'll make it about me. I can nominate the worst offensive rookie of the year.
Go ahead, Geoff.
But yeah, Puka was amazing. The Rams again, like hit on last year. It was Kira Williams. Like their ability to find these playmakers in the late rounds, like full credit to whatever goes on there.
He was going to win that award if Stroud didn't get back. If Stroud didn't get back the last two games of the year, he would have missed too many games to have won the award.
That would have been an interesting
the odds
one.
were shrinking, and I was watching every week. The odds were shrinking and shrinking and shrinking as Stroud didn't play. But then he did come back and played great and beat the Colts in the last game, and he locked it up. But if he'd missed the last two games of the year, I think Puka probably would have stolen it.
Well, the odds were shrinking to like minus 2,000, Tim.
But even shorter than that, I think I saw like a minus 700 at one point.
Okay.
Maybe.
I'll take your word for it. I believe you to be an honorable man.
Yeah, like I saw the odds shrinking every week because Stroud just kept not playing. And like that does affect these awards. There is a critical mass where you miss enough games. And
It did feel like even before the injury, he might have done enough. But yeah, Puka was record-setting awesome. He became YR1.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Defensive rookie of the year, then. If we're all on board with Stroud, fly through these other ones. Again, another one that doesn't have any sort of fun. Well, I think it's fun that they have corporate sponsors, and you're usually on board with that. But the 5 nominees for defensive rookie are Will Anderson, Jalen Carter, Joey Porter Jr., Kobe Turner, and Devin Witherspoon for the Seattle Seahawks. The Rams really had a good draft, Tim.
yeah, the Rams did this year what the Jets did last year. Drafted 2 awesome rookies.
I thought you were going to say fail miserably.
Well, they do that the Rams don't do that every year.
That's how you overcome like 70 million in dead cap.
Yep.
Is
Yeah,
drafting
it's
that
true.
way.
It's is not having many injuries and drafting well.
Mm-hmm.
So who ended up closing as the favorite for this award?
I believe Jalen Carter was a small favorite with Will Anderson at like plus 200. And then there was a drop off afterwards to everyone else. If this is about who I'm voting for, which I think is what we're doing here, who would get my vote, I would vote for Devin Witherspoon. Devin Witherspoon, Pat brought up a great point about Deron Bland. Like, hey, if you're good, people don't throw at you. Guess what? Like, people don't throw at Devin Witherspoon. He had a very good season, not quite like Sauce Gardner caliber season from last year, but it stacks up being pretty close in terms of how often he was targeted, the percentage of completions. He has a very good tackle rate. I don't think like Jalen Carter, great first half, fell off. Will Anderson struggled first half, had a great, second half of the year. Devin Witherspoon was consistent all year in the passing game. He would get my vote. He's not going to win. I'm not suggesting he's going to win, but that's who I'd vote for.
Jeff, Jalen Carter is getting my vote simply for almost having an interception on the spike.
Yeah. He was in those early Eagles primetime games, he was dominant, and that resonated. Like he had dominant performances in primetime as a rookie. Like those last. There were moments this year where I marveled at Witherspoon. I'm gonna be like a dud, and maybe because I didn't have the guts to do it with offensive, because we were talking about a quarterback. I'm gonna give the Rams the nod here. Kobe Turner. I'm almost using the fact of like where he was drafted in my just breaking a rule here, but I'm schmaltzing it. I'm Kobe Turner for the Rams was like dominant and was drafted late.
Do you think that this could be a market, Rob, that is still exploitable? That it might just be one of the fourth and the people who like in the odds we would think of either Turner or Witherspoon are probably 4 and 5 in the odds when it like last closed or if they're still available somewhere. But it feels like anyone can kind of win this one.
It does. And also because like the betting favorite, the defense for that team for the latter half of the year was an abomination. Like it's really hard to have like a good taste in your mouth about Jalen Carter now when you know what that defense looked like to finish the season. So I do think it's possible that someone else wins it. It's just that I honestly don't know. This is definitely the category though where I think if like there's an upset that happens, I can see it happening. I don't think it will be anyone other than Will Anderson though, because Will Anderson down the stretch was an absolute force for the Texans on that defensive line. I don't think that it's going to be a Turner or a Witherspoon personally, but this is the award where I can see an upset.
Tim?
I too would take Witherspoon for the exact reason that Rob suggested, that he was the most dominant defensive rookie throughout the course of the season, not just in the half of it. And that needs to mean something.
All right. The last category also without a sponsor. I mean, they really should have went deeper into these sponsors. You have extra awards here. The AP Assistant Coach of the Year, Ben Johnson, Mike McDonald, Todd Mencken, Jim Schwartz, and Bobby Swolick. I think that this is where the Lions get their flowers. It's either him or McDonald, I would think, just based on how historically good the Ravens defense is. But I think Jim Schwartz defense was really good, Jeff.
Yes, it was, but I would go off the board.
Well,
I'm making it.
There's only 5 nominees.
Well, I'm making, what do you call it? I'm doing a write-in. I am doing a write-in. Steve Spagnuolo. With what happened in Kansas City this year, with how they develop those players, it's incredible. It is incredible. He through the season didn't get the credit he deserves. So honorable mention Spags, but yeah, you're right, Pat. This will be a Lions thing.
This is like the Oscar they give out during the week before the Oscars that you just see the 3-second
At the
clip
banquet.
of. Yeah, at the banquet. Exactly. That's what this one is.
That they roll B-roll of like
Exactly.
coming back or going to commercial. Like,
Exactly. That's what the
I didn't even
Academy
know this
has
was an
has-
award. I honestly didn't
Exactly.
even know this was an award.
Me either. The Academy congratulates the following people for having won awards. In
it's like
technical
earlier
sound
this
production.
it's like earlier this Thursday, we got together at the Beverly Hills Hilton and honored like
The gala. Yeah. Oh man, I love that. Oh, that's good. That's good. I'm not
give it
convinced
to-
Ben Johnson's going to win.
Yeah, I think Ben Johnson's going to win as well. If you can't get like the Lions
I do
had,
too.
the Lions were the darling team, and they're going to win nothing. So this is something that they can win.
Mike
do like
McDonald
that Ben
could definitely
Johnson-
get votes though, because that Ravens defense was very, very good for the season. Like when you look, I wonder about that. Like when you look at where the Ravens defense finished relative to where the Lions offense finished, it could be a pretty good case for Mike McDonald as well. So, but it's got to be one of those two. I'll be floored if it's anyone else.
Yeah, I think McDonald deserves it more, but Johnson will probably win it.
Yeah.
Didn't think he was going to be a head coach either. I stand by it.
What jobs are left?
Washington and Seattle.
I could see Seattle.
No, he's already said he's not coming back. He's not. He's
Yeah.
not taking a head
That's
coaching
it.
job this
He's
year.
done. He said he's
Really?
going to stick with OC for the Lions this year,
Which
It's
is usually
rumored-
what you say when you know you're not going to get the job. You're like, "Oh, I'm not interested in the available jobs."
Ben
no, but
Johnson
Washington
is just
apparently was flying to come finalize the deal
Yeah.
and give him the job.
Yeah.
Well, if I were him, it's smart not to go to Washington. and
This
take
is
that.
very weird.
It's widely believed that he makes more money than Dan Campbell. And I think that this is true based off of today's stuff, because I don't think you're just sticking with a coordinator position where you're he's getting paid like a head coach already. Really,
Rob,
is what it
have
comes
we
down to.
seen a guy
He's making
turn down
Dan Quinn
jobs
money.
back-to-back cycles? I can't think of like he turned it down. He turned down the Carolina job last year, which is props to him. I guess he's only 37. Like he's
Yes.
like, I'm still a baby, but let's say Goff turns into a pumpkin and the rookie doesn't looks like crap. And the bloom can come off the rose.
Yeah,
Maybe.
he can. I mean, he's
Or
betting
you
on
just-
himself.
Does he have some sort of like past that we don't know about, like Eric Bieniemy, where the people are like, I don't like that so much.
Yeah, but
Well,
how about this? How about he will be the next head coach of the New York Jets next offseason?
What a high
Maybe.
route.
I mean, they're going to hire. They usually go offense, defense. So that could happen. I don't know. I hope not, because that means the year will have been a bad season. So I kind of hope that doesn't happen.
Well,
I
Schefter's
wouldn't want that
tweet-
Washington job either.
Yeah, that's one thing. Like, we don't know what his motivations are for one, but the Schefter tweet made it very much implied that teams were like basically saying like, no, we're not paying you what you're asking for. And you know who will do that? Jerry Jones next offseason will be the guy when the Cowboys go out in the first round at 12-5 and lose at home. Jerry Jones will pony up whatever Ben Johnson wants. And it's kind of a blessing in disguise, I think, for Cowboys fans that this is not happening this year.
But I would argue like the Seattle job is a fantastic job. This is the Paul Allen estate. They've that can mean nothing, but it just seems like it's an incredibly stable organization there. That in my opinion is really well run. I think that's a great job.
All right. Well, that will do it for the NFL Awards show. I want to thank Rob and Geoff for being here, Paul for putting up with me and my wonky connection over at my house in my home studio, and of course, with the coin with a week off, extra props to Tim and Cust
Tim and August.
That's not my name.
for being on the line today. Shortest show of the year, back to back shortest shows of the year. You must love this, Tim.
Absolutely. We are becoming the Quibi version of podcasts I've always dreamed we could be.
Well, we did spend an hour talking about, we didn't recap any of the championship games this week because that had its own isolated show on Monday.
That is true. That is true.
Any change on your early Super Bowl stuff, Tim? Any pick?
No, I was surprised to see the steam move back towards San Francisco a little bit, but it did. My standby thinking that the Chiefs are the play.
Rob?
Well, I have to reevaluate everything now after Tim's answer. I don't want to bet against Mahomes in the Super Bowl. Like my options are I'm going to bet the Chiefs or I'm not going to bet.
Geoff? Yeah, and you're just free rolling all the San Francisco futures that you have. Did you think about hedging at all?
I will think about it. I probably will, because I do lean that Mahomes is winning this game. I saw today they've run out of room at the Luxor for the media hotel, and they've added rooms at the Excalibur. Like, I don't know how down bad you are in the media world to be accepting a room at the Excalibur, but
well,
good luck to those guys.
If they sent Cam this year, he'd be in his glory. This is exactly where he wants
Cam
to stay.
and Gabe, they're different. They're in a different like tier of
Yeah. Can we get put up at the Hooters, please? That would be great. That's Cam's dream. You think he wants to stay at like the Mandalay Bay? Hell no. Like he's Luxor and Excalibur. Like he's probably writing emails now to see if he could get sent this year.
Well, yeah, because Cam loves like Fremont Street. So like Luxor is it's probably fancy for him.
I mean, too fancy, definitely.
Well, I would just assume Cam wants the place with the cheapest drinks and the lowest limits of blackjack.
Bingo. That was always the thing. Back in the day, whenever I used to go to Vegas with Cam, he wanted to stay at the Sahara because they had $1 blackjack, which I think is the Fontainebleau now. I believe it's the same prop. I could be wrong on that, but I believe that's where it is now. But yeah, that's Cam's thing. Like, get me the $1 hot dogs in the sports book, cheap blackjack, and he's in heaven. So, but I've had some very interesting experiences in Vegas with Cam. Those are stories for another day.
I kind of get that. Like, I mean, you don't really ever do Vegas on a budget whatsoever. But if you were able to play $1 blackjack for like 8 hours in a row with 5 of your buddies, that would be kind of fun.
Yeah, that's what Cam's there for. He's not there for like the hipster nightclubs and bottle service or any fancy show. He is there for, like Rob said, the cheap tables, the cheap hot dogs, the snaggletooths. Everything
service
that comes with it.
Here's the thing. God, I love Cam so much. He'll sit at the $1 blackjack table. He's going to play a couple hands of $1, and then the next hand's going to be $50. And from there, he's never going to play a $1 hand again. So I don't know why he's seeking out the $1 blackjack, because he's not playing $1 blackjack. You might as well just go anywhere on the strip to play blackjack when you're playing the limits he's going to play anyway. So I've never really got that. I don't have the heart to tell him that. Like, I'm not going to see, he's just going to get cheesed if I say that to him. But yeah, he's not playing $1 blackjack. So why even seek it out?
Well, that will do it on the Pat Mayo Experience. And talking behind Cam's back, I'll have to ask him the next time I see him about $1 blackjack and see how that goes. So I want to thank Rob for joining us this week. We'll be back with the best bet show for the Super Bowl with me, Rob, and Cam next week. And obviously Tim, Geoff, and I and Paul will have the spread picks and all of our favorite props for the Super Bowl all coming next week. So please rate and review the audio podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, sub to the channel, and smash the like on the way out. I believe the Run the Sims prop sniper is going to be free for everyone with just an email address at runthesims.com this week, and all the DFS product as well. So please go check out runthesims.com. I'm Pat Mayo. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.
Mayo Experience! Experience!